and we're close to 20,000 babies alone that we deliver at home. But here's the shift in our practice. In the last 10 or 15 years, as I've become more and more vocal about vaccines, our vaccine rates have gone from 10% of practice to 9% to 5%, where now it's almost non-existent. The only reason we don't become a vaccine-free practice is because my partners have been with me for more than 25 years, who've never vaccinated their children, said to me, Mayor, if we give such a hard line, we're going to lose thousands of people when they come, realize that they don't have to vaccinate their children. And all of a sudden it became obvious it's more than just autism. We have virtually no asthma, virtually no diabetes, virtually no allergies, all these chronic conditions that children today suffer from. And those people will say, there's no real increase in autism. We're just counting different. Well, how do you count all? You said it so well. The neurological problems in school.
Look, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
I don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that when I went to see movies like Dumbo when I was a kid, or I went to take my sister, who's 14 years younger than me, when I was in high school and college, I'd take her. My parents would say, will you come over and babysit next week and take her to a movie? You never saw autistic children. I'm on the Greenbelt. I'm at the mall. I take my kids every few months to a movie. It's like 2 or 3 rows are in there autistic. I mean, they are the schools, and people say, oh, well, that's just false diagnosis. Let me tell you, it's not false diagnosis when you're on the Greenbelt and there's autistic kids running around screaming everywhere, completely out of their minds. I mean, they're under chemical attack. And we've seen autism rates go from, 1 in 25,000 20-something years ago to 1 in 86 now. The Fed's own numbers. I mean, boy.
And that's the most severe case. All this has to be looked at as the same thing, what Dr. Mendelsohn said 30 years ago. What's the difference between ADD, ADHD, and autism? Just the spectrum. How severely your brain has been damaged, like Dr. Blaylock said, and that's the only difference. And we saw virtually none of this. But even more impressive may have been when Blue Cross called me. This is about 2-3 years ago, and they said to me, because we also have a small HMO group that we're part of Blue Cross, and they said the asthma rate in their network was 12%. We had 1 child out of 1,000 with asthma, and they have a great definition: 2 emergency room visits in 1 year for any respiratory illness or 1 hospitalization. So you can't say one person's doing one thing, one person's doing another thing. And they wanted to know, Alice, you're going to have to hear this. This is very fascinating. So I go to the meeting there at Blue Cross, and they said to me, Doc, why do you have such low rates? I said, well, we're the best doctors in the world. He says, come on, tell us the truth. So I said, why don't you tell me what you think? Because they have all the records there from all the HMO patients. None of these children are vaccinated. How incredible. That was frightening. That's when I realized that Alex Jones not only is right, not only has had an impact in the country, but this is not conspiracy theory. This is overt now.
Well, that's what's crazy about this. Why would these corporate minions who aren't part of that upper crust of eugenicists, why would anybody want to do this? I mean, I've been on vacation, I've been at the mall, I've been at the grocery store, and you'll see an autistic child, 10 years old in diapers, and I'm not obnoxious about it. I want to know, and I walk over and I say, when did your child become autistic? And they always say,
after a vaccine.
18 months old, 3rd round of shots. He was running around talking, singing. Now he does this. And the child's, and I mean, it's, and then I read about how when your kid has the convulsion that night, they then send the police to arrest you because they do a CAT scan and see the brain swelling and say you shook your kid's head when you're a medical doctor and have countless others on. Clearly, they know the mercury and the squalene is causing an autoimmune response and making the brain swell. So then they don't just brain damage your kid with a chemical lobotomy. Now they're going to arrest you for it, too.
Well, let me tell you, Alex, do you think everyone in Germany were Nazis? Every one of the people, every one of the Germans? But, there's a point that the more so-called, quote, intellectual a society becomes, and I put that word in quotes, not smart, they all of a sudden defer to the experts, and they stop thinking, and the brain goes soft. And all of a sudden, you can't imagine that all these experts are wrong. And it doesn't take very many. And that's what you said. They're a paper tiger. They're a blessed paper tiger. And I think what's happening now, just like at the town hall meetings, Alex Jones hired and spent money to hire all these people to go to town hall meetings? I don't think so. You didn't hire the 80-year-old woman who was in a wheelchair who's screaming how ridiculous this is, and they're calling her a hoodlum. It's all the same, but it's not working anymore, and that's the problem. All of a sudden, it's not working. They no longer can just say it, and that's true. That's Chicago politics at its best. Just say the lie enough times, and people will believe it. I mean, I think that it's just so out of control. And I wanted to know that autism, of all the things in my 30-plus years in medicine, I've never seen anything as devastating to a family. Cancer, nothing compared to that. Heart disease, nothing. Those children are alive. They just have a shortened life. Autism, the parents have no life. No life. And these are the most brave parents in the world who take care of these children. Something, I was at a conference in California last week, an autism conference, and I realized something I hadn't realized before. I'd never met both a husband and a wife together because one of them was always at home taking care of their child. How sad is that? That you can't administer, hand over the care to somebody else. That's how difficult it is.
Well, the child is in a prison, and the parents are in a prison, and it doesn't have to be this way. But then on top of it, but going back to the Amish, I mean, you're right. This has been even picked up in national news that you don't have these autistic children with the Amish. You don't have these high rates of cancer. You don't have these rates of the asthma. From your medical research and the other research you've gone over, what is it doing? I mean, from the other doctors we've had on, and endocrinologists and epidemiologists and brain surgeons, neurologists, they basically say that what's in the vaccines causes all sorts of inflammation and damage and burnout of the pancreas, burnout of different glands, all sorts of just total disruption in the body. I mean, is that, I know that's an oversimplification.
It's not an oversimplification. I go back to, I'm kind of an old-time general practitioner. That's what I'm like, And I'm pretty good, as my wife says, that when I hear the truth, I seem to know it. And when Dr. Mendelsohn said it over 30 years ago, every vaccine causes neurological damage. And then you've got the brilliant people like Dr. Blaylock and Dr. Boyd Haley, who now give you the reason why it's causing it. We see it. Every Alex Jones, and there aren't very many of you, who goes in the mall sees it. All they're doing is giving you why it's happened. I have made the statement, Alex, now for more than 3 years. There is no autism in our practice. I use the word virtually because I don't know every single family. I mean, some may have left, may have moved to California. I've yet to get one letter, and boy, do I get a lot of hate emails at times. When I talked about Obamacare is not for this doctor, my God, I got people sending me back emails. You better apologize. He's our president. I say, it's not my president. I didn't vote for him.
Oh, yeah, they love it. They love to now say you can't even criticize him.
Right.
Well, I mean, the issue is I've read over the 3 different bills. And everything people say is in there and more, and we've shown the subsections, and they use this big lie, like they say, we haven't introduced any anti-gun bills. They've introduced all these horrible ones, we've listed them. They say, oh, that's not in there, and then, all this government control, all this rationing of care, that's the European model. We know, but also forcing more vaccines, more drugs, we know that that's all in there, but I also watch CNN and these other channels. They keep showing, I just am broke and I don't have money for my illness and I need the free health care. They don't explain that it's only going to bankrupt things more and that government isn't going to give you that health care. They're going to take money out of your paycheck and then give you an aspirin for a heart attack. I mean, but again, they're selling, feel sorry for me, be nice Americans, give in to big government again. And people are wise now. They don't, when somebody beats them over the head and says, you're a racist if you don't do what we say, you don't care about sick people if you don't do what we say, people see right through that.
This is the most gracious country in the world. God bless America. My father came from Poland. He lived in Russia. He was a rabbi. He was a good businessman. Came to America. My dad spoke 9 languages. And he said he's traveled the whole world. When he came to America, and I was a year old when he came to America, it was after the war, and every morning he got up and said, God bless America. There is no country more gracious that will take care of people. Everyone's taken care of in this country. Mr. President, you don't know what the blessed heck you're talking about. If you, God forbid, have a injury, you go to any emergency room and they take care of you. If that bill isn't passed on to someone else, the doctor in the hospital take care of you. They don't get paid.
Exactly. My dad's a physician, and he says they were taught in medical school, they were taught that's what you do, that about 20-30% of your practice is supposed to be free.
Exactly.
And then now, under this Obamacare, it actually takes that liability off the hospitals, off the doctors, and off the insurance companies, and then you get government care. The government says they can't even read the 1,300-page bill, but they're going to now practice medicine. And then Obama gives these speeches where he says what test you need, and he's now Dr. Obama.
Yeah, I know. Let me tell you something. There are a couple of doctors in Congress and in the Senate, and every one of them is against this. Republican or Democrat. I find that very fascinating, but I think you're right, Alex. I think they're seeing through it.